Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I am your host, Sam Vicini. We are powered by CLNS Radio, where you can win up to $200 in prizes by submitting your 2017 March Madness bracket in the free CLNS Radio Bracket Challenge starting next week. Win big, and remember, joining the league is completely free. You'll also be competing against the likes of me, Danny LaRue, Coach Nick, Derek Bodner, everyone who has podcasts on this network. To get the login information, simply follow and direct message at CLNS Radio on Twitter, and you will be ready to go. Today on the show, we have one of my favorite people on the internet to read, to just follow in general. I've been following his blog since I went to Ohio State, starting in 2008. He is certainly the much more famous and talented Ohio State grad from the early 2010s. It's Mark Titus from over at theringer.com. How you doing, man?
I'm doing really well. Just I'm digging this conference tournament action. Not so much for our Buckeyes, but I don't know. Anytime you can just like lay around the house and watch college basketball while all your friends are at work, like that's a great feeling. So I'm doing great right now.
It's fantastic. I've lost a shit ton of money in these early games. From like the 9 o'clock window to like the 2 o'clock window out here in Pacific time, I've just like hemorrhaged money. And then last night I like saved myself a little bit. But that's like the best part of this. You just get to sit around, you have to gamble on basketball, watch basketball, and just hang out.
Right. It's like a tune-up for March Madness. That's all it is. I mean, some would say this technically kind of is March Madness. It's more so at the lower levels. Like at the power conferences, I don't really count it as March Madness, but it's a tune-up. You gotta get those muscles ready. You gotta remember what it's like to sit on the couch for 12 hours a day and watch basketball all day and stuff your face. So we're getting ready for Thursday is what's happening.
I have kind of a weird opinion. I kind of think that Thursday, the day that we're recording this podcast, Thursday of championship week is the best day of college basketball of the season because you have all of these crazy ass like Big East, Big 10, Big 12 tournaments where you get all kind of rivalry games that are awesome. Some of those teams are fighting, some of them aren't for NCAA tournament bids. You get random ass low major, mid major games to bet on. It is the most packed day of the college basketball season with like the most in terms of like actual competitive level as well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I agree. I'd have to think about it. You kind of caught me off guard. I don't know but you make a compelling case. I mean, I'm thinking about that. Like, yeah, there's a lot at stake for a lot of these teams. There's like very few teams going into this day with nothing at stake because even the teams that you feel are one seeds, and maybe this isn't true so much this year, but in most years, like even the teams that are like, yeah, they're probably one seed. If you lose in the quarterfinals of your conference tournament, then your one seed might be in jeopardy. So even like the best teams have something to play for. And then the rivalries. Every like good team still kind of playing. I'm with you there.
Yeah. And the cool part about today also is that we get Frank Mason playing without Josh Jackson on the floor. I believe they play TCU. And more importantly than that, we got Bitch I'm Frank Mason Part 2 coming out from Redhead. I know that you listened to this immediately upon it coming out. Like I did too. I found it last night. I think that our good friend Reegs over at Barstool, who we have on the show all the time, tweeted it out. And I was like, yes, this is awesome. What were your initial thoughts on Bitch I'm Frank Mason Part 2?
My initial thoughts, like as I was playing it, I was like, "This is going to be awful. No sequel is ever good." I was kind of like bummed that they were going to tarnish the legacy of the great "Bitch I'm Frank Mason" song. I think it's a better song, but it's not quite as funny to me. It's like the first one. I don't think you could top the first one. That's what I mean. It was just like so random and so aggressive. I guess would be a good word. The first one, you're like, geez, man, like I get it. You're Frank Mason. Calm down, you know. And like this one was more subtle and sounded more like this one sounded more like an actual rap song, which is good, like better produced and better written and all that kind of stuff. But the first one was like clearly about a basketball player who just was very aggressive and stuff, and that's what part of what made it so funny to me. But yeah, it's a banger, man. The second one is definitely a banger. I've listened to it 100 times. I don't know. I can only pick out like a few lines. Like there was a Bill Self mention in there, like it was real subtle, something about like I'm selfish with my bills or something, and you know that's what he was doing. There was I got 3 hoes that are 10s, and that's a triple double. Like, that was great. Those are like my 2 favorite lines I could lit. But Yeah, I'm not much of a rap guy. So like anytime there's a rap song that I like, that I know that means a lot to me because it's like it's not really my thing. I spent so many years like playing basketball. Let's be honest, I was like the only white guy on a lot of the teams I played on. If there were other white guys, they all seemed to like rap, and I was like the only guy from like rural Indiana that just was like, I just want to listen to some country music, guys. Can we get that on the radio here? So I kind of rebelled against rap music once I got out of college. I was like, I listened to that for 18 years. Like, I'm ready to move on from that. So anytime a rap song comes along that I actually like, that's always awesome. So
yeah, there was no feeling like Bill Self with all these bills to myself line in the second one, which is just like the most outrageous line ever from the first one.
And in the first one, he rhymed Kansas with Kansas. He did that a lot. Like, yeah, the first one's just so funny, and the first one, like, you listen to it the first time, you're like, this is hysterical, and then by the time you listen to it like the 1,000th time, you're like, and it kind of is like not a bad song. You can like play it in the background and kind of like bob your head to it a little bit. The second one, I never thought was like funny, which is okay. Yeah. I'm sure Redhead's trying to carve out a career for himself. You can't just be making funny songs left and right. But yeah, the first one's definitely better. But the second one did not tarnish the legacy, I don't think. So I'm happy with it.
Yeah, the first one was like Ja Rule-esque. Just in terms of like the sheer ridiculous anger that was going on. It was like the perfect like early 2000s rap song in all of the best ways. So I was just like, yeah, this is like the greatest song ever. The second one, I mean, it's fine. Like you said, it does not tarnish the legacy of the first one, and that's the good thing.
Yeah. By the way, I love that Frank Mason is Player of the Year. Like, this is, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we're going to have 2 Frank National Players of the Year in the last 3 years. 2 guys named Frank. Like, that is, and a Doug before that. Like, these are names that you do not think of like the best college basketball players named Frank and Doug, right? And like, this is 3 of the last years. And a Buddy's thrown in there too. Those are the last 4 years.
This is a weird like name run of NCAA Player of the Year. And Frank Mason is a baller. Yeah, like how well has it worked out for Redhead that Frank Mason didn't turn into Nadir Tharp again? Like, it's incredible that Frank Mason's like this National Player of the Year candidate now is probably going to play in the NBA.
Right, and that's what made the first song so funny, was that he made it when Mason was averaging 6 points a game, and he was the 4th best player on that recruiting class with Wiggins and Embiid and Selden, and like it was like, yeah, okay, you're Frank Mason, we get it, but you still, you're just like a role player on a average Kansas team, a forgettable Kansas team. Like, calm down.
Yeah, like why are you rapping about Frank Mason?
Yeah, right. Of all the guys you could rap about, you picked the guy who's Frank Mason. That's what part of what made it so funny. So.
Oh my God! Yeah,
good for Redhead.
I wonder if that hurts the second one a little bit, just like unconsciously, just like, yeah, like there should be rap songs about Frank Mason now. Like, fucking balls.
Right.
Yeah, Frank Mason. There are so many random like Frank Mason things coming out. Like I saw Holly Rowe tweeted a picture at Nicole Auerbach with Frank Mason holding a dog whose name was also Frank Mason that like kind of looked like Frank Mason, and I was like, this is incredible. Like, there are so many random Frank Mason like facts that are coming out right now, and I just want to know them all.
So I was thinking about this. Is this a product of like social media? Because I can't tell. Like, I'm trying to think back. I'm sure you're the same way. You've been a college basketball fan your whole life. I certainly have been. And when I think back on like the players and everything I liked when I was growing up, I don't really remember, like, for lack of a better term, like a sense of cult things around these guys. Like, I don't remember like AJ Guyton, like anything about him off the court. I just remember he was a great player, and that was it. And I feel like this is something that like 15 years from now, like the kids that are like in high school that like know about Bitch I'm Frank Mason, and they'll look back and like talk about Frank Mason and how he's their favorite player growing up, and they'll remember that rap song. And I don't know, it's just like, it's one of the awesome byproducts of social media, I guess, because these sorts of things didn't happen when I was growing up, and I don't have those things to look back on. And it's like weird, because when we look back on like this era of college basketball, we're gonna be like, yeah, Frank Mason was great. He averaged 20 points and 5 assists for a pretty good Kansas team. Maybe Kansas will win the title, and that'll help. But we'll talk about that. But then everyone's gonna talk about like, yeah, and then there's this rap song, "Bitch I'm Frank Mason," and there's this dog named Frank Mason that was Frank Mason's dog, and like there's this whole aura around the guy off the court that, yeah, I don't know. It adds an interesting wrinkle to what it means to be a college basketball fan now.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, like, like JJ Redick, I guess, like had the poetry thing, but like no one like really talks about like the poetry thing. Like it's, awesome. Everyone's just like, yeah, he just like reads poetry. It's whatever, man. Like everyone's going to be like Frank Mason, man. Like, bitch, I'm Frank Mason.
Yeah. That's Redick did have the poetry, I guess, but I can't think of really anything else. But yeah, that's going to be awesome. I will certainly remember this. Like I remember Sonia Curry and Peyton Siva's dad and all that kind of stuff. This is a fun time to be a college basketball fan. So maybe we're getting a little too into the weeds here.
No, that's what this podcast is for. It's to get into the weeds on ridiculous shit. Let's move on to something, I guess, that is less in the weeds. Ohio State basketball is in the news because they lost to Rutgers in the Big Ten tournament, which is kind of a disaster. And then before that, athletic director has to come out and basically give Thad Matta a vote of confidence to say he's going to return next year. To me, like, I was just like, this is ridiculous that he even has to like announce this. The guy is the best coach in Ohio State like basketball history, and we have to come out and start talking about like press releases saying, yeah, he's returning next year. I mean, I understand that Ohio State basketball's fallen off the last 2 years, but also it's not like they had a down Villanova year under Jay Wright where they won like 13 games. Like they've won like 17 games. Like it's really weird. Like where do you fall on all of what is going on with Ohio State basketball?
It's hard because I'm obviously super biased. I love Thad. He's not just as a coach, just as a human being. He's awesome. So I'm always gonna like support the guy.
And let me be clear too with listeners. Like this podcast, this portion of what you're about to hear, there's going to be no bad words spoken about Thad Matta because I also like as someone who is 1,000 miles away from it, love Thad Matta and think he should stay as basketball coach. Like there is not going to be any negativity here under Thad.
Right. I guess like, yeah, so I come across as really biased, I know, but even just as an alum, it's a no-brainer to me. Like the reason people care about basketball at Ohio State is because of him.
Yeah.
Like just look at what the program was before he got there. I mean, excluding the years that they were removed for cheating, which like whether that actually was that big of a deal or not is, people can argue that all they want. Like the banner that got removed with Scooney and Michael Redd and all that. Like, if we assume that year didn't count, which it did, but like whatever.
Yeah, that stuff's always bullshit. Who cares?
You have to go back to like the early '90s, the last time like Ohio State was even relevant nationally. So yeah, like for me, I don't have my head in the sand and pretend like the program is in great shape and the team is doing really well. But yeah, like some perspective is needed. Like the guy is the greatest coach in the school's history. Everyone's acting like we won 6 games this year, and that's just like absurd to me. I don't even think our players realize that Ohio State. I mean, up until losing to Rutgers, that certainly doesn't help. But say before that game, like they might have been 3 shots away from being an NCAA tournament team. Like if they don't lose to Florida Atlantic on a buzzer beater, if they do, and then they lost, they had a shot to beat Virginia at the buzzer, and they had a shot to beat Purdue at the buzzer, and both of those missed. So like if those 3 shots go. And part of that I know is like, well, the great teams find a way to make those shots, the bad teams don't, yada, yada, yada. But it's not like this was just an awful team that was losing by 25 every time they took the floor and just a complete embarrassment. And they lost their best player, too, Keita Bates-Diop, which, like, half the fans complaining about this season don't even probably know Keita Bates-Diop's name.
Yeah.
So they're like, Keita Bates-Diop's going to come out next year and start and be a good player, and everyone's going to be like, oh, I like this freshman recruit that we brought in.
Oh, wait, he's a senior? What?
Right. So, I mean, it's tough because it's hard to gauge what the expectations are. I personally feel like Ohio State fans have an arrogance about us, and that's good in a lot of ways. But sometimes you just need perspective and to step back and be like, Ohio State isn't the best at it. You can't possibly be number one at everything, and that's kind of. I feel like Ohio State fans in general are. It's just like we have the biggest alumni and the best in the facilities and all the money, and if we're not number one and competing for national titles in every sport, then the coach has got to go, and that's just not the reality of it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like assuming Providence moves into the top 50 of Ken Pom, like just basically don't lose to Creighton tonight, which I don't think they will, just given what's happened recently. Ohio State's gonna have like 6 top 50 wins this year.
Yeah.
And they're like not just like 6 wins total, like you were talking about. Like they're gonna have 6 top 50 wins. They're gonna have a winning record on the season. Like this was not a disaster year, like any way that you slice it. It's a weird like thing where, like you said, Ohio State fans just have this massive like superiority complex where they have to be the best at everything, and they are like Ohio State is like one step away from being an NCAA tournament team next year.
Yeah. The way I would describe them, and I've tried to describe them to like NBA people because I work at The Ringer, which is an NBA website. So like all the people I work with are like, what's going on with Ohio State? It feels to me like they're like an NBA team that has a lot of cap room and is just waiting to sign a superstar. And they got like a lot of great role players. And I know it doesn't work that way at college, but that's just like what it feels like. Is they have really good role players. They just need like one guy who can be the guy, and you hope it's Jaquan Lyle, but like he's just not consistent enough. And Jayshawn Tate is 4 inches too short and doesn't have a right hand. And Trevor Thompson, like maybe kind of, but he's still a little raw. And they have like all these guys that are close. They're like B plus players, and you just like wish, like if D'Angelo Russell was on this team this year, oh my God, they would be so good because like all the guys that Ohio State have are great at being role players, but you need somebody who can just, who's an elite talent, and they just don't have that yet. And I don't know, but I mean, think about this, like what blue blood football programs have consistently great basketball programs and like are just churning out Sweet 16s and all that. Like there are good programs, but even like Michigan a couple years ago, after they went to the title game, they sucked. Florida had to do the transition between like even like Billy Donovan's last few years, they weren't very good.
Also, like Michigan this season at basketball, not like crazy better than Ohio State, definitely better, but like no, I don't think it's a massive difference.
Ass in Ann Arbor, I mean,
yeah,
it's not, and it's not. I think Ohio State fans don't understand that there's just like the way college sports work is there's just like a certain amount of resources, and you can't. It's hard to be elite, have a blue blood football program, and have a basketball program be consistently great, and I'm in total agreement. This has to be better. I think the baseline for Ohio State basketball is making the tournament every year. Mm-hmm. Not making the tournament is kind of inexcusable. Like I think this season should be considered a failure. But to fire the best coach in school history and I mean, and then the other part, I know I'm rambling, but this is something that makes me ramble. Like I've seen people like sort of compare Thad and say like, like Rick Barnes was probably the greatest coach in Texas history, and Lorenzo Romar is probably the greatest coach in Washington history, and Scott Drew is probably the greatest coach in Baylor history. And like, I wouldn't want any of those guys either. And maybe they needed to go. And like those sorts of conversations happen. And the response I would have to that is, Thad's been to 2 Final Fours. He's won like 4,000 Big Ten titles. He went to the Sweet 16 like 12 years straight, whatever. Well, I'm using hyperbole obviously, but like the guy had a 10-year, his like first 10 years at Ohio State, he was the best Big Ten coach, the most successful Big Ten coach, without question. Like he was
like
better than.
So weird that people just like don't give Thad the respect that like he kind of deserves as a coach. I mean, I remember watching, and this is I want to say when you were at Grantland, like you guys did some sort of like live show like during the NCAA tournament, and Ohio State like ends up going out in the first round. I think it was in maybe 2014 to Dayton, and Jalen Rose is like sitting on the couch like talking how like Ohio State has really fallen off as a basketball program. I'm just like, they just got done going to like 5 straight Sweet 16s. What do you like? Can they not have like a single year where they go out in the first round?
Right. It's crazy, man. Like I remember when Thad was like, in like the 2013 era, I remember seeing people. It was right after Michigan had gone to the title game, and you'd see like on Reddit or something, people would be like, "Who do you guys rank the Big Ten coaches? Who are best?" And it'd be like, Izzo's definitely number 1. Bo Ryan's definitely number 2. I think Beeline's probably 3, and then I guess either Crean or Matta would probably be 4. I'm like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? Like, how can you possibly think that? Like, what the fuck is going on right now? But I don't know. That's just it's all part of it. I get sometimes I feel like I'm so close to it and biased with everything, and I understand coming from me like. I'm not exactly an unbiased source, and I get that, and I do the same thing with other people. Like you hear alums of other schools talking about their coach that they love, and I roll my eyes, and I'm like, yeah, he's not that great, shut up. So I get people rolling their eyes at me right now. But I just think like objectively, even when I remove myself from it, it's like this is absolutely ridiculous. I think Thad could go like 10-20 next year, 10-24 or something, and still have one more year. And they'd be like, okay, well now we're going to start talking about it. But
yeah.
I don't even think he's close to being in jeopardy. I know Gene Smith loves him, but yeah, I think it's all kind of ridiculous. But I mean, I don't think Ohio State fans are alone in this. I think this is just something that has become college sports. I think this is just like Godfrey got run out of town, and Kansas State fans hate Bruce Weber, and it's like Kansas State basketball is like an oxymoron when you put those words together. Like, I didn't even know Kansas State had a basketball program until Bob Huggins got there. So I don't understand why they, like, that's just kind of, that goes on around the country. It's like we're not, if we're not in the Sweet 16, then we got to fire our coach. That's just what has to happen, and that's just part of it.
Yeah. So Thad Matta is 49 years old. Like, I understand that he's probably not going to have like the longest coaching career, just because, from what I know about him, he has outside interests. Obviously, there are the back issues. Like, he's not a guy that's going to coach until he's 70 years old. Like, I just don't, like, I cannot foresee that, and you could speak to that better than I could, but like, I cannot foresee that. He has won 439 games before he's 50 years old. I don't know, like, if that, like, I'm sure it's been done. Like, I'm sure Bill Self has probably done that, but like, he's probably one of 5 coaches in history to have done that.
Yeah, I think I remember it was, for a while it was like him and Mark Few, like, because they would talk about that stat all the time, like he's the fastest to whatever number of wins, and like Mark Few would be the one guy that got there faster or something. So yeah, he's in very exclusive company for sure.
Yeah, he is an insanely good basketball coach. Like, the next question here is like, where do they go? Like, how do they get back to where they have to be? And I guess like the easiest cop-out answer is, like when Ohio State was really good, they were getting 5-star recruits. Like they were getting the guys that played on your AAU team, like Greg Oden, Mike Conley. Obviously, that is an answer. But like, do you even think it can be simpler than that? Just like, okay, hold down Ohio. Like, and I think that's one thing that people get bothered by, is that Luke Kennard left and went to Duke, and we lost Nigel Hayes and all these dudes. And I mean, like, I get it from some perspective. Maybe holding down Ohio is one easy step to getting it back, but it's just like as simple as, I assume he's going to get more good recruits at some point. Like, it's just the way it works.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I've talked to him a lot about this, and I think their philosophy is sort of, with recruiting, is they try to build a core. I don't think Thad even wants to play the one and done game, even if he could get, basically just because of what happened after we went to that title game. Like, the team felt gutted. Like, the whole, like, Mike Conley left, and that was kind of unexpected, because going into the NCAA tournament, I think even Mike would have told you he was definitely coming back in 2007. And then he had a great tournament, and he had to go, and he ended up getting drafted 4th. And going into the next year, we ended up going to the NIT, and I think at that point Thad was like, I don't really like this game, but at the same time, it's kind of what you have to do at this level. So I think his strategy has been like, build a foundation with 4-year guys, and then try to hit a home run with just one D'Angelo Russell or Jared Solinger, or I know Jared was there for 2 years, but or Greg Oden or something like that. And I think that's kind of the play. And having said that, they don't really have that coming in next year, but that is the strategy. A lot of people do think just lock up Ohio, and there is a ton of talent in Ohio. And it's I actually started going to Ohio high school basketball games because there's so much talent here. It's fun to go to those games. But again, like, the context on all this is important. Like, Luke Kennard I don't think he ever answered Ohio State's phone calls. Luke Kennard's a McDonald's All-American. Like, as much as the people in Ohio think that Ohio State is like the end-all be-all of college sports, it's not. And like, if I was growing up in Indiana and I was a great football player, like, I would not want to go to IU or Purdue, and that's what happened. Like, I guess that's the analogy I would make is, how Ohio State football gets guys from all over the state, and they'll get a great recruit from
Texas or Florida,
or a great recruit from like Kentucky. You think like Kentucky basketball fans are like, or Kentucky football fans are like, oh, how do we let this guy go to Ohio State? No, they say, yeah, he was good. We never really had a shot at him. That's how it goes. Ohio State's a blue blood. So the Kennard thing was like, he was never coming here. I mean, that's just, it's the reality of it. He's too good for Ohio State. And then some of the others, like Trey Burke, Shannon Scott was a McDonald's All-American. We landed him. I think every coach in the country, if you had lined him up at that point, do you want Trey Burke or Shannon Scott? They all would have taken Shannon Scott. So I don't really that's just a hindsight sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of with the Nigel Hayes thing too. Like Mark Loving got Nigel Hayes' scholarship. At the time, I don't think that was that big of a deal. And even now, it's not like Hayes is killing. I mean, he's a really good player. He's better than Loving, but it's not like a,
I mean, Loving would have killed in that Wisconsin offense as a role player with the way Hayes did early in his career. And I mean, Hayes is a number one option, hasn't exactly gone over insanely good or anything. He's been surpassed by Ethan Happ, and even in the offense, even Bronson Koenig's a little bit stronger than he is.
It's Ohio State is a B+ program that for a stretch there, Thad Matta made an A program, A-, maybe even touched A+ for a second. But now they're back to B+, B, and that's just the reality of it. And with that, recruits know that. And I mean, the same people that complain about how Ohio State doesn't land recruits anymore don't go to any of the games. And we have 8,000 people at the shot, for a ranked game. And
that's another thing I wanted to talk to you about real quickly here. I think that for my money, that is the worst basketball arena in the Big Ten. I've been to most of them, and I'm sure you've been to all of them. To me, that's the worst arena in the Big Ten.
It's terrible. It's awful. I mean, Penn State's kind of the same, but the shot's bigger, so it makes it worse because it's that big, and it's it's a chicken. So that creates a chicken and egg situation. I mean, the fans don't go to the games because the team sucks, but how are we supposed to land recruits when if Luke Kennard's going on a visit to Kentucky and then Duke, and then he comes to Ohio State and there are 9,000 people there, and of those 9,000, 8,000 are wearing football jerseys. I mean, why would he possibly want to come to Ohio State? What, you know what I mean? That's and I don't tell people how to spend their money. I would never be fans, you have to spend money and come to these games. I just think you have to sort of earn your right to complain as a sports fan, and if you're not willing to spend money and go to games and support these teams like the Blue Bloods support their teams, then we're never going to be a Blue Blood. I mean, when Indiana won 6 games in Crean's first year, they were still selling out games, getting 14, 15, 16,000 people a night at Assembly Hall to watch their team lose by 60. Because that's just the culture of basketball at Indiana, and that's how it is. And Ohio State doesn't have that culture, and the sooner that these frustrated Ohio State fans realize that and temper their expectations, I think they'll realize it's not that big of a deal. It's going to be okay.
Well, Mark, do you know the best way for Ohio State fans to get to Value City Arena?
What's that?
It is by using SeatGeek. SeatGeek.
There you go. That's right.
It is the NCAA basketball season is in full swing, even if Ohio State season has ended. And SeatGeek is the smartest, easiest way to get tickets to your favorite team's games. With SeatGeek's seamless mobile experience, you can buy and sell tickets in 2 taps. SeatGeek helps you find the best seats at the best prices, fully guaranteed. There's nothing like being in the stadium for the biggest plays of the year, and SeatGeek will get you closer to the action for a great value. I have the SeatGeek app on my phone, and it is by far the easiest way I have found to shop for tickets. I can be anywhere, and with just a few taps, I can instantly find seats. I use SeatGeek to buy tickets out here to go to Kings games. I think you might be the most famous Columbus Blue Jackets fan. Is that right, Mark? So I'm sure that you use it to go to Blue Jackets games.
Herb Street's a Blue Jackets guy.
I didn't know that. There you go. I'm sorry that you have to settle for number 2. Best of all, my listeners can get a $20 rebate off their first SeatGeek purchase. To get your $20 rebate on tickets, download the SeatGeek app, go to the settings tab, and click add a promo code. Enter promo code GameTheory, GameTheory, one word. SeatGeek will send you $20 after you've made your first ticket purchase. Again, that's download the SeatGeek app and enter the promo code GameTheory today. As we record this podcast, Duke and Louisville are playing. I mean, I am sure you have the TV on in the background, and the biggest question that I can ask you is Duke back?
They are back right now. They're up by 2 on Louisville at halftime, so I think they're back. I think this means Duke is the favorite to win the title. That's the only conclusion that can be drawn. We'll see how these second 20 minutes go. Maybe they won't be back after that, but right now they're back for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it took 30 minutes for them to be back, and in 30 more minutes they'll probably be not back. That's the way Duke goes this year, according to every single media person in the entire country and triangle.
I am absolutely enthralled by Duke. I think everybody is every year. there obviously are like if you're a college basketball writer and you're not really sure what to write about, just put Duke and on whatever piece you're writing, just write the word Duke and then sit back and just watch what happens next.
This year is totally different though.
This year is different. This year is so different, and I can't resist it. It's just like people have like been getting on me like, why do you have such a hard on for Duke this year? And it's like, how can you not have a hard on for this team? Like, this is the drama that's been going on all season, pretty much from the start of the year. It wasn't. I don't think this team was hyped quite as much as 2015 Kentucky, but it was probably the second most hyped team that I can remember in recent memory. Maybe like 09 Carolina was up there. I don't really know, but like
09 Carolina, 07 Florida.
07 Florida for sure. Yeah.
But like that's the stratosphere we're talking about with this team.
Yeah. Like I saw people talking 40-0, and it was like, well, probably not because the ACC is really good. They're not going to go 40-0, but like, could they maybe go 38-2? Is that on the table? 39-1 maybe they'll win the national title. Like, so it started way before the season, and then all the stuff that's happened since, the injuries, the Coach K back, the Grayson Allen saga, the Luke Kennard being the best player, and Jason Tatum hating that Luke Kennard's the best player, and then Harry Giles like just being able to walk in a straight line and everyone's like giving him a standing ovation because his body's just completely betrayed him, which I'm not even trying to make a joke about that. Like, it's a really sad situation. It just kind of speaks to what's going on at Duke, that this guy who's the number one recruit in what's considered a loaded class, like he just like makes a simple post move and the whole world's like, oh my God, he's back. We did it. He's, like he's starting to show some signs. And I don't know. I just can't get enough of it. I honestly can't. Like, I've watched more Duke basketball this year than any other year, and I watch a lot of Duke basketball every year because I kind of have to with my job. But this year has been so awesome. So
yeah, like the Kennard Tatum thing is what, like fourth or fifth on the list of crazy things that has happened to Duke this year. Like, Coach K misses a month. Grayson Allen trips the shit out of people just randomly and gets teed up in the middle of games for cursing. And
he gets suspended indefinitely for one game.
Yes.
That was awesome. And then K takes away the gear and keeps him out of the locker room. And I mean, it never ends.
The players only meeting that I'm sure happened.
Yeah, the players only meeting that it's amazing. And then on top of that, like, this team has fatal flaws, but they could kind of overcome them because they have two go-to guys in Tatum and Kennard, where it's like, I mean, how many teams around the country have two guys that can just get on any given night could go for 35
at that level, like at the Kennard and Tatum level? No other team has that.
Yeah, right. And so that's what, like, you can't really count them out, but at the same time, they can't play defense to save their lives, especially like on the interior. They have no point guard who like wants to just run the show. I mean, Frank Jackson's been playing out of his mind, but they don't really need him to score. They need like a guy who just sets the offense and moves the ball and gets guys where they're supposed to go. And they need like the Wojo who there's a dead ball free throw and he just grabs everyone by the jersey and huddles up and says like, let's play better, guys, or whatever it is, whatever the hell you say in those little huddles. They don't really have a guy like that, and that's become like a problem. And it's we spent all season like waiting for it to sort itself out. It's like, well, they got so much talent. They have 94 McDonald's All-Americans on that roster. They'll be fine. They'll figure it out. And they really haven't figured it out, but sometimes they are just so talented that it doesn't matter. So yeah, it's super intriguing. I'm so into Duke this year. I can't get enough of what's going on with them.
Yeah, like the is Duke back question, like during the NCAA tournament, it's seriously going to be all over the internet. It's going to be like the most electric question, like during every single game that Duke plays in the tournament, which might be like one game, given that they're probably going to be like a 4 seed if they lose this game. So it's just like the most fascinating college basketball story I can, like, I honestly cannot remember a more interesting team than Duke.
No, I've used a lot of hyperbole today. No lie. This is the most intriguing season for one team in my lifetime that I can ever remember. I've never been as fascinated. And I can't imagine a scenario where I will be as fascinated. It's amazing. I love it. So
it's just like the most consistent source of weird shit happening, like in a singular, like 10-mile radius.
I mean, we all know Duke's going to win the national title, and Chase Jeter is going to have like a double-double or something. That's how it's going to play out. That's the obvious conclusion to this.
Like, if that happens, I mean, I'm just like done with college basketball at that stage. It just will not be worth it. Just like some final quick thoughts. Like, what have you thought of this college basketball season in general? Like, have you really enjoyed it? I mean, what have your overall thoughts been?
It's weird. I'll be honest. Like, I think out of the gate, I was really into it. I felt like there were a lot of great teams. Maybe not like historically great or anything like that, but I felt like there was an obvious kind of separation between there were tiers. Kansas and Villanova and North Carolina were probably up there. Kentucky was up there earlier in the year. And then there was like kind of a drop off, and it became intriguing because I was into like I thought the play was good. The Carolina Kentucky game earlier in the year was like the greatest thing I'd ever seen. That was right after the Kentucky UCLA game, and you have like these games going on where you're just like all the bitching that NBA fans do about college basketball, like they have to shut up now because this is unbelievable. And if you disagree, then you just I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is the greatest thing, and it sort of became like a lull where I don't know if it's like a good thing that so much parity happened or what, that these like all the teams that I didn't consider in that top tier kind of started sneaking up, and the teams that were in the top tier were losing to teams they shouldn't have. Like North Carolina loses to Georgia Tech, and you're like, wait a second, that doesn't make any sense. That's not how I thought the season was supposed to go.
Well, we had John Rothstein telling us Georgia Tech was about to go 0-18 in the ACC.
Right. Villanova gets swept by Butler, which is like, what? How is? And I know Villanova like kind of sort of running on fumes, but not really. They're kind of Villanova seems to just be in like get to the tournament mode. They beat the hell out of St. John's today, by the way, but they sort of remind me of like an NBA team that's just kind of resting their starters sometimes. Just get us to the tournament. Yeah. We don't really need to play for the Big East anymore. But
Villanova is the Cavs right now.
Yeah, like they're like the Cavs. Yeah, right. But yeah, they're like teams like that, and then Kansas loses at home to Iowa State. I know they made like 4,000 threes that game, but they're just like Kansas had a ton of close games. Like that's kind of a weird subplot to this season. Like Kansas won their 13th Big 12 season title, and they won it kind of convincingly by whatever.
4 games.
4 games, was it? Yeah. But they had a lot of close games, a lot of close calls. The West Virginia, they were, getting smoked, and they had to pull a miracle out of their asses. So yeah, I think in general, it's going to make for an exciting tournament. But I won't lie. Like I thought the quality was. I thought this was the season that we could submit to NBA fans who always bitch about how college basketball is unwatchable and be like, you can't say that anymore because look at this season. And I'm not sure it ended up being that, but it was still a fun season. I still think they're like obvious favorites. I like that Gonzaga's really good. That makes it intriguing to me. I like that nobody knows what to do with Wichita State. Like we feel like. Some people think they should be on the bubble. Others are like they should be a 3 seed.
I think that like the is Wichita State elite question is like college basketball's is Joe Flacco elite?
Is Joe Flacco elite? Yeah, I love that Baylor was. I love that Scott Drew had Baylor ranked number 1. Yeah, there's a lot to love about this season. I love that Josh Hart and Frank Mason were 2 of the best players. That's cool. That 2 seniors that were unheralded. I mean, not completely unheralded, but not.
I mean, Frank Mason was like going to Towson, like. That's as unheralded as it gets.
Yeah, I guess that is unheralded. Yeah, that's I don't know if I feel bad or good for Towson fans that they keep getting reminded that Frank Mason was supposed to go to Towson. I'm not really sure how many Towson fans exist, but that would suck to be like a Towson fan and you just get every time you hear the most famous thing about Towson basketball is Frank Mason was supposed to go there.
That's just be like a kick in the balls.
Yeah, it was a fun season. I mean, we had Duke carry us with the storylines. I think Kentucky might have been the team that kind of hurt things. Like, I was really into Kentucky earlier in the year, like with the UCLA game and the North Carolina game, and then they kind of went through their struggles, which it seems to be an annual thing with them and all their young guys. And they're kind of coming back now, and I don't really know how serious to take them. I mean, they're obviously really good, but it's hard to know for sure, and that'll be interesting. But I don't know. There's so many teams in college basketball and so much going on that there's always good stuff. There's always plenty to hold you over if you're looking for compelling stuff and good basketball and all that kind of stuff. So it was fun. I liked UCLA. That was a fun surprise this year. Lonzo Ball and all that. that was pretty awesome. I think that's the thing NBA fans will gravitate towards about this year. So
yeah, how much does the NBA like argument annoy you as someone who writes for an NBA site?
Yeah, right. It's terrible. It's like, I mean, what annoys me is that like people don't understand why people like college sports.
Right.
Like I just don't get it. Like, really, you don't understand why we like that these kids are going to the same schools and the same classes and getting drunk at the same bars, and they're representing our alma maters on a national stage, and you know, it's pride for all of us that went to that. Like, you really don't get that? Like, you know, like I don't. That's like the dumbest thing to me. Like, I understand that it's not the same quality of play and all that kind of stuff. Like, the talent is obviously not even close to NBA stuff, but yeah, I mean, to pretend like there's no compelling reason to watch college basketball is just asinine. I mean, you just have to be a contrarian just to say that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like I don't understand like why people can't enjoy multiple things at once.
Right,
like, it's not like an impossible concept.
Yeah, that's the other part. And I always say like people, college fans will ask me to rip on the NBA. Like, did you see that game? Look, check out this possession of James Harden not playing defense. You never see that in college. I'm like, well, you know, I like the NBA. Whatever. You don't have to. I prefer college. If there's a good college game on, a good NBA game on, I'm always going to pick the college game. But if there's not a good college game on, I'm going to watch the NBA. I love the NBA. It's awesome. So I just like basketball. And I wish there were more people that just like basketball. But
yeah, no, that's exactly how I feel. I'm just like, whenever someone comes to me with the James Harden thing, I'm just like, I mean, you enjoy Luke Kennard. Like, what do you want me to say, man? Like, I mean, like, I don't know if there's a racial thing going on there or what, but like, you know, Luke Kennard doesn't play defense and you don't think of him as this lazy dude. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't get it.
Right. And I think it's just a state of the world maybe that we're in where you have to pick sides of everything. You can't like if you said you liked LeBron, then someone would be like, "Wow, man, I can't believe you hate Steph Curry." You're like, "What? I didn't even say anything about Steph Curry. I just said I like LeBron." Like, yeah, exactly. Why do you hate Steph so much? You're like, "What?" You know, like that's just kind of how these conversations go. Not even just sports, like politics. Like, literally pick any issue. You could say you like a rapper, and I'm sure they'd be like, "Wow, I can't believe you hate that other guy." Like, I never said anything about hating the other guy. I just like this guy, you know. And I think that's just part of it too. Is just if you like one thing, that automatically means you have to hate the other thing. Which like happened this year with me when I with Caleb Swanigan and Ethan Happ, like in the Big Ten circles I was in, I would say like, you know, I think Caleb Swanigan's the best player in the Big Ten. They're like, "Wow, I can't believe you hate Ethan Happ, man." Like,
that happened to me too, because I was on the opposite side of that thing, and I was like, I think Ethan Happ's probably a better all-around player, and people would just be like, "I can't believe you're talking poorly about Caleb Swanigan," and I'm just like, no, like Caleb Swanigan's like one of the coolest stories in college basketball. Like, how can you hate on this dude who lost like 150 pounds?
Yeah, it's so weird, but that's just the nature of. I don't know what it is. I'm not smart enough to pick up on other like socioeconomic things and the whatever the hell has led to this point in society. But that seems to be where we're at, where you say you like one thing, that means you hate the other. And I'm trying to fight that. I like all basketball. So
yeah, we're gonna get hated on because we talked about redhead at the top, and people are gonna be like, "You like redhead? That means you hate Josh Hart."
Right.
Oh my God. Well, Mark, tell us where people can find your work. Tell us anything else you want to tell us about, man.
Yeah, theringer.com. I'll be, you know, we do a podcast on there. I'll write some columns. I'll stay busy during March Madness, so check that out. Like you, Sam, I understand the fun in all of this. I don't take myself seriously. If you can figure out, those of you listening to this, you can figure out and listening to me. I just like to have fun with it. It's a fun sport. It's fun to follow. I love college basketball. Always have, always will, and I like to have fun. So. The only other thing I'd ask you, just because I'm curious, who do you feel like is the national title pick? And I know so much of it depends on the brackets and matchups and all that kind of stuff. But who's like your team? Because that's kind of another interesting subplot to where we're at, is that there isn't like an obvious team, I don't think.
Yeah.
Or maybe there is.
The way I've been like explaining it to people is I think that before we see the brackets, Gonzaga is like the most likely team to get to the Final Four, because I think they are they're the most complete team, right? Like they have,
I would agree.
You know, like they have multiple guards who can create offense. They have a ridiculous rim protector in Shemek Karnowski. They have athletic forwards. They have wing players who can defend. They have, shooting. They have everything that you kind of want from a team. They're top 10 in offense, top 10 in defense. They play at like a normal pace. They can play fast. They can play slow, as they've shown against St. Mary's. Like, that ability to play in a wide variety of ways makes me think they're the most likely team to get to the Final Four. But like, if they are... Like, if Kentucky is, for some reason, the 4 seed in their region and they are the 1, I mean, I'm probably picking Kentucky and saying Gonzaga goes out in the Sweet 16. So, I don't know. Like, if you made me pick a title team right now, I'd probably say Gonzaga or Villanova, but it's impossible.
The question isn't, I guess, who's going to win the title. The question is, like, who do you feel confident in going into this tournament without knowing the matchups?
Yeah, like, who do you feel confident in?
I would agree. North Carolina is intriguing to me, but I think what makes Gonzaga so intriguing, and a lot of people are probably just rolling their eyes and saying Gonzaga sucks, they always choke, whatever. But yeah, like you said, they're flexible, and that seems to be important in the NCAA tournament because so many different teams are gonna throw so much stuff at you. Some will slow it down, some will play fast, some nights you'll be hitting threes and you won't, and you'll be in foul trouble and you got to be deep, and like there's so many factors that go into it. And Gonzaga isn't necessarily great at everything, but they're really good at everything, I think. And they don't have any obvious weaknesses to me, so that's good. But like if like Carolina is running at their speed and their tempo and they're hitting threes, like their top gear is pretty nuts. And UCLA is the same way. I mean, if UCLA if they can get 5 guys to get in a stance every possession, like on defense, and then their offense is clicking, like UCLA is insane too. But yeah, it'll be fun. Villanova is just kind of lurking there. They won't go away. They're going to be good, which is so funny to me, by the way, that like a year ago, if this Villanova team existed a year ago without winning the national, we don't know that they won the title last year. Everyone's picking Villanova to lose in the second round to an 8 seed. Like everyone would pick this team to lose. Like they're 6.5 guys deep or whatever it is.
Plus, like, just Villanova had they had the kind of reputation of choking almost, right?
Right, that's what I mean. Yeah, like if you take their whole reputation of choking and then you pair it with this team that they have, like they obviously have a great team, but they've had a lot of great teams that kind of come up short. Like everybody would be picking against them, yet because they won it last year, it's like, oh no, Villanova, they're a lock. So they're going to be interesting to me, but I don't know.
I like teams that are switchable like them. Like that's the whole reason I like them, and I like SMU is like one of my Final Four like dark horses. So I like teams that are like 6'4" to 6'7" and just like switch everything because those teams are so hard to match up with.
Is SMU your team? I guess that's another interesting question to ask: is what team do you believe in more than everybody else? Would that be SMU for you?
Probably SMU. I do believe in them. Like I believe in like all of the underlying metrics that really like them. I like the way that they cause matchup problems for other teams. St. Mary's is a team that everyone's just like, oh, screw them. Like they lost to Gonzaga 3 times. Right. But I mean, if they get the right matchups, like if they play small teams early, like if they were to match up against Villanova, I think they give Villanova some problems because, their problem is that if you have someone who can stand up Jock Lawndale, I mean, it kind of like grinds their offense to a halt and they're very reliant on the 3 at that stage. But if you don't have someone who can stand up Lawndale, like they're just going to go to work on you the entire game.
Lawndale got in foul trouble all 3 Gonzaga games too, which is a huge thing. And I guess at that point, maybe it's less unlucky and more like he needs to do better not get in foul trouble. But I don't think they're that much worse than Gonzaga than what those scores indicated.
No, it's just a bad matchup. Like how BYU's a bad matchup for Gonzaga because they just chuck all day. Right. Like St. Mary's is just a like bad matchup for Gonzaga because Gonzaga just has the right personnel to deal with them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's where I'm at. Who are the teams that you like in that regard?
I like Louisville is why I asked. Watch Louisville play. Like Louisville, for some reason, I just like I love Louisville more than everyone else.
I agree with you on that.
I love Anas Mahmoud. I think he should be a lottery pick. I don't understand why. I don't understand why he doesn't start every game. I don't understand why he's not like the dude's 7 foot tall and he moves like he's 5'10". It's insane. He's awesome. But yeah, like Louisville. I mean, you kind of know what you're getting with them. They just play like lockdown defense, and the way they're going to get bounced in the tournament is they're going to go 2 for 19 from the 3-point line, and that could happen. That very easily could happen, but I don't know. I'm counting on it not happening. I think like Louisville to me is obviously a Sweet 16 team. Like I would be absolutely stunned if Louisville didn't make the Sweet 16 at least, which is, I know it's not much, but there are a lot of teams that I could see losing in this first or second round. But Louisville is like, they're going to make the Sweet 16, and then from there they can cause a lot of problems with anybody. Especially if all they need is like Donovan Mitchell to carry the offensive load, and if Deng Adele's shooting well. Like, I don't know. I really like Louisville. I like defensive teams.
Yeah, me too. Like, my two favorite teams are really well-rounded teams like Gonzaga, who can just match up in a wide variety of ways, or just like hyper-athletic teams. Like Florida State, I think, is going to cause a lot of teams outside of the ACC problems, because there are actually a lot of ACC teams that can kind of match up with them athletically. Like, if Florida State plays a team from the Big Ten, like, I don't know what the Big Ten team does.
Oh, gosh. If anybody plays a team from the Big Ten's in trouble. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, this podcast has been a big proponent of the Big Ten is trash all year.
The Big Ten is very much trash. Louisville's up 9 on Duke, by the way, right now. So Duke is no longer back. Louisville, right on cue. They are very much back.
Yeah, Duke is not back. Duke is done. We are done talking.
Grayson Allen just hit a 3. Duke is back.
Okay, we're good. Batten down the hatches. Duke is back. We're done.
Oh man.
Oh man.
All day. Hey, appreciate you having me, man.
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. This has been the Game Theory Podcast. Please remember to subscribe to the show on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Stitcher. Leave reviews, ratings, everything you can do to support the podcast. That includes using the promo code Game Theory, GameTheory, over at SeatGeek. That would definitely bode well for me getting future sponsorship, which is always a valuable thing. And until next time, again, thanks to Mark Titus for coming on. We will talk soon. Bye.